I want to be precise about something before I say anything else. My children did not forget me the way you forget where you put your keys. They forgot me the way people forget a place they grew up, gradually and then completely, and with the help of being very busy with something else. I'm not bitter. I've had 86 years to practice not being bitter, and I have gotten fairly good at it. My name is Rupert Calloway. I was born in 1940 in Harlan County, Kentucky, which most people know from a song or a television show, and very few people know from having actually been there. It is a county that teaches you early that the ground can give you your living and take your life in the same motion, and that there is nothing personal about either one. My father went into the mine at 15. I went in at 17. That is not a complaint. That is just what the calendar looked like. I married Cora in 1962. Cora Lee Washington, from a family 2 hollows over, who had a laugh you could hear from the next room, and an opinion about everything, and the good sense to know when to share it and when to keep it. We had 4 children. James, the oldest, we called him Jimmy, then Deborah, then twins, Michael and Sandra, born 1969. 4 children in 7 years, which meant that for most of the 1970s our house was noise from one end to the other, and Cora was holding all of it together while I worked doubles. There is a calendar on that wall behind me. I have kept a calendar on that wall for 31 years in this house, always in the same spot, always the same kind. One of those big paper ones with the squares large enough to write in. Every January, first thing, I sit down with a red pen and I mark every birthday, every anniversary, every holiday. Cora started that. She said a family that doesn't mark its days loses its days. She was right, as she tended to be. She died in 2003, pancreatic cancer, which is fast and does not negotiate. We had 41 years, and I will not say more about losing her than this. The house got very large very quickly, and the calendar on the wall kept having squares with red marks in them that nobody called about. But I'm getting ahead. Let me go back. In 1978, I hurt my back in the mine. Not catastrophically, I walked out, but enough that the doctors said no more underground work. At 38 years old, I had to become a different kind of man, which is not something anybody tells you is possible until you've already done it. I moved the family to Lexington in 1980, found work as a custodian at the university. Some men would have felt the distance between what they'd been and what they were. I decided the floor I mopped was my floor. That was the only way to do it. The children grew up in Lexington. They went to good schools. Jimmy became an engineer up in Columbus. Deborah married a man from Atlanta and moved there in 1989. Michael got a business degree and ended up in Dallas. Sandra stayed closest, Frankfurt, 45 minutes away, until 2001, when her husband's job took them to Phoenix. 4 children, 4 cities, none of them Kentucky by the time the new century arrived. I was proud. I want to say that plainly. I was proud of every one of them, and I would be proud of them still if they called me once a month, and I would be proud of them still now. The calls thinned out around 1998. Nothing dramatic. Life just accumulated around them. Grandchildren arrived. Careers accelerated. The calls went from weekly to monthly to holidays to the specific holidays, and then to some of the holidays. And then Cora died, and there was a week of everyone. And then they all flew back to their cities, and the house went quiet in a way I had not experienced before in my life. Christmas 2004, first one after Cora. I set the table for 5. I had called everybody in November, reminded them, said I'd handle all the food. Said just come. Jimmy said he'd try. Deborah said probably. The flights were expensive. Michael said he'd see. Sandra said yes, definitely, she'd be there. She called Christmas Eve. Something had come up. She was sorry. I sat at that table. The food was done. 5 plates. The calendar on the wall had December 25th circled in red twice, which is what Cora always did for Christmas, twice around the square. And I had done it myself that year without thinking. I ate alone. It was fine. The food was good. I'm telling you this not so you'll feel sorry for me. I'm telling you this so you understand what comes next, which is the part nobody expects. I decided, sitting at that table, that I was going to fill the time. Not to punish them, not to make a point. I simply looked at the situation like a man looks at a mine entrance. This is what's in front of you. Now decide what you're going to do about it. I started going to the senior center on Tuesdays. There was a man there named Wallace who had been a music teacher and who played chess like it was a personal insult to his opponent. We played every Tuesday for 6 years until he had his stroke. I started reading, really reading, not just the newspaper, checking out books from the library the way I should have done years earlier when I was too tired from work. History mostly, African history, American history, the history of coal. One book pointed to another and that was fine. I had time. I started writing letters, not emails. I was 64 and had no interest in a computer. Actual letters, in an envelope, with a stamp. To the children at first. Then, when those went mostly unanswered except for a quick phone call that felt like a receipt, I started writing to other people. Old co-workers. A cousin in Harlan I hadn't spoken to in 20 years. A woman named Gloria from church who had moved to Tennessee. Letters went out and letters came back, and that was something. In 2009, Jimmy drove down from Columbus for my birthday, unannounced. Just appeared at the door on a Saturday morning with a bag of groceries and said he was going to cook. He hadn't cooked anything in my kitchen since he was 19. He burned the biscuits. We ate them anyway. It was the best day I'd had in years, which I told him, and he looked at me in a way that told me he hadn't known how bad the other days were. That is the part that stays with me, not the abandonment. That was nobody's fault, really. It was the physics of modern life. Children flying outward like sparks. The part that stays with me is that they didn't know. They had assumed I was fine because I had never, in 86 years, been anything other than fine. I was the man who walked out of the mine. I was the man who changed at 38. I was the man who ate Christmas dinner alone and did not call anyone to say so. I did not teach them to worry about me because I did not believe they needed to. That is on me. I can say that now. Sandra calls every Sunday. Has for the last 4 years. Michael got better. He came in March, stayed a week, fixed my porch railing that had been loose since 2019. Deborah sends boxes, food, warm socks, once a book she thought I'd like, which I did. Jimmy calls Tuesdays, after chess would have been, and I think he knows that even if he's never said it. It's not what I had. But I have lived long enough to know that not what you had is not the same as nothing. The calendar is on the wall. January through December, the red marks in their squares. I put them there every year. Some of them get a call now, some of them don't. I mark them all anyway. Because Cora was right. A family that doesn't mark its days loses its days. And I have not lost a single one yet.